Okay, we're there in Ephesians chapter number 6, and as I said, in case you didn't realise it, today is Father's Day. Well, at least in New Zealand I think it is. Different countries have it at different times, but so if you haven't bought your dad a present, just a note, it's not too late to do so. But do you know what the best Father's Day present, in all honesty? The best Father's Day present that you can give your father, keep your finger down Ephesians 6, we'll come back to it, but look at Proverbs chapter number 23, which we sang earlier on. Proverbs chapter number 23. Proverbs chapter number 23, and we'll look at the best present that you can give your father. Proverbs chapter number 23. Look at verse number 15. Proverbs chapter 23, verse number 15 says, "My son, if thine heart be wise, my heart shall rejoice, even mine." Notice that. He says, "My son, if thine heart be wise." If you're a wise son, guess what? My heart is going to rejoice. So, you want to give your Father's Day a great Father's Day present? Be a wise son. Don't be a foolish son. Look, he says, "Look, yea, my reins shall rejoice when thy lips speak right things." So not only be wise, but speak what's right. When thy lips speak right things, my reins shall rejoice. And reins, it's actually talking about your mind. You know, your mind and your heart. Think about, you've got your reins. Think of the reins on like a horse. What does it do? It directs the horse. Well, guess what? Your mind is the thing that directs you. So it says, "My reins rejoice," it's talking about. He says, "Let not thine heart envy sinners, but be thou in the fear of the Lord all day long. For surely there is an end, and thine expectation shall not be cut off. Hear thou, my son, and be wise." Once again, be wise, "and guide thine heart in the way." And then he says some things not to do. He says, "Be not among winebibbers, among rioters, eaters of flesh. For the drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags." He's warning about these things. And then he says, "Hearken unto thy father that begat thee, and despise not thy mother when she is old. Buy the truth and sell it not, also wisdom, instruction, understanding. The father," notice this, "the father of the righteous shall greatly rejoice." You want your father to greatly rejoice? How about being righteous? "And he that begetteth a wise child shall have joy of him. Thy father and thy mother." So this could go for Father's Day and Mother's Day. "Thy father and thy mother shall be glad, and she that bare thee shall rejoice." Okay, and so we can see here that the Bible is telling us, look, if you want to make your father happy, these are some of the things that you should do. Okay, fear the Lord. That's all we should do. It says in Proverbs chapter 16, verse number 6, it says, "By the fear of the Lord men depart from evil." So when people fear God, they do what's right. You know, and so that's an important thing that we understand, is that to make our fathers happy, we need to be people who do what's right. Okay? What other warnings we saw there? Don't do what's wrong. Don't hang around with drunkards. Don't hang around with gluttons. If you don't hang around with drunkards and gluttons, that will actually make you happy, not just your parents happy. Okay? That is unless, of course, you desire to be poor. If you desire to be tired all the time, if you desire to be clothed in rags, then hey, go and hang out with drunkards and gluttons. But I'm assuming you're not going to want that, and if that's the case, then don't hang around them. You know, the best gift that you can give your father today is to be righteous. And the fact is, the book of Proverbs, which we are at the minute, is filled with wisdom that if you follow it, that will set you on the path to succeeding in every area of your life. And that is something that will make your father happy. But of course, if you choose to ignore it, then your life could end up being a disaster. Your life could be an absolute shambles, you know. You could be a poverty-stricken drunkard, you could be clothed with rags, you could be in prison. That's what could happen to you. Now, there's been a lot of talk lately about reducing the number of people in prison in New Zealand. But sadly, the wisdom that we will find in the book of Proverbs is something that doesn't actually get a mention. Let me read you part of a recent article covering the government's Criminal Justice Summit. Let me just find, I've got a number of pieces of paper. Where is the right one I'm looking for? What's here? Over here. So this is this is an article written. It's basically discussing what Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, what she describes prisons as being a moral and fiscal failure. Okay, it says here, the government's attempt at reforming, and I should just give you a heads up. This is probably one of those sermons that may cause some people to be offended. This is not the lovely Father's Day sermon. This is one that might upset people, because I might say some things that you don't agree with, and I might upset you, but it's important. when you hear things preached, to see, well, does this match up with what the Bible says? So it says here, the government's attempt at reforming our criminal justice system kicked off with Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern describing prisons as a moral and fiscal failure. It's the same phrase used by former Prime Minister Bill English in 2011 and came with Ardern telling the launch of the government's Criminal Justice Summit, "I don't see much point in placing blame anywhere on this issue." So that's quite an unusual thing for politicians to do. Normally they're always about blaming other people. She says, "No one set out to have a criminal justice system that has us ranking so highly when it comes to incarceration. We've got a lot of people in prison, percentage-wise, in New Zealand. I think that we all realise that prisons are a moral and fiscal failure." In other words, it's saying, they're financially wise, they're not working, but morally they're not working. They're not fixing any of the bad behaviour. Okay? And that staying on a trajectory which would see us building a new prison every 2 to 3 years is even more so. It's failing. About 400 people attended the launch tonight of the government's Criminal Justice Summit in Parliament. This was actually a couple of weeks ago. Ahead of 2 days of meetings in Paurua to be attended by government ministers, opposition MPs, national experts and international speakers. Parliament's, we don't need to talk about this, it's basically saying there's a bunch of people there, there were police there were gang members, there were government MPs, there were former prison inmates. To effect change, the government needs some political consensus. They need people to agree. And there was an element of olive branch to Ardern's use of Bill English's phrase and a rejection of blame over New Zealand's imprisonment rate. So she's basically saying the same thing that the National Party, when Bill English was the Prime Minister, is saying the same sort of thing. English used the term as a platform to launch the National Party's social investment strategy, which aimed to be a cradle-to-the-grave, data-driven exercise that targeted government assistance to those who need it most. So find out the people who need the assistance and give them government assistance. That's what they were trying to do. And of course, the thing about it is, it's such a... I don't want to get off on track, but governments are useless at everything they do. They're terrible at everything they do. So if you've got a job you want done, if you give it to the government, it will be a shambles, it will make a mess. Okay? But, that's why big government is a bad thing, because the more control they've got, worse it is. Anyway, National Party leader Simon Bridges has said the opposition will work with the government on rehabilitation initiatives, in other words, helping people get out of a life of crime and so forth, but warned of political backlash. So in other words, they're saying they're not going to go along with it if reform meant changes to bail, parole, or sentencing laws. So saying, look, we're not talking about letting people out or having them less, shorter sentences and stuff like that. Ardern said she wanted New Zealand to be the land it already believed it was, fair-minded, a place where everyone is treated fairly. Sadly, though, she says, I think over the years the view we have of ourselves has been getting out of line with reality. Ardern said that New Zealand's ideal of itself had jarred in recent years against stories of homelessness and poverty. Now, we were talking about this when we were out Solomon the other day. Someone was asking me, what's the story with New Zealand? I was saying, look, there's this talk about homelessness in New Zealand. But, to be honest, it's a pack of nonsense, really. It's nonsense. The claim, what did I read? Is there like 40-something thousand people are supposed to be homeless in New Zealand. Well, where are they exactly? Where exactly are these homeless people? And it's just a case of where you define it. I was homeless. There was a while where, do you know where I lived? I lived in my parents' garage. I had a bed, I had everything I needed, I had an electric blanket out there. But according to the government, I was homeless. Why? Because I lived in a garage. If you live in a camping ground, do you know what you are? You're homeless. Have you seen some of the things that people live in camping grounds? But anyway, that's sort of by the by. If you define it as people who are actually living on the street, who have nowhere, like really homeless, then we actually end up being pretty similar to somewhere like Japan, which is like one of the top of the list, but very, very few homeless. Okay? But no, we've got this huge problem with homelessness in New Zealand. And of course, and poverty. New Zealand has got this massive problem with poverty. Haven't you heard it? You've heard the problem? We've got a massive problem with poverty. Well, the thing about poverty is we need to know how poverty is actually defined. Now, the way poverty is defined in New Zealand as households that make less than 60% of the median disposable income. So if you take the median means you line everyone out from the richest person to the poorest person, and you go and find the middle person. So it's not the average, it's not the same thing as the average, but as you count from this side and that side, go in the middle, that's the median. Okay, that's what we're talking about. So you find that person. Now, if you take that person, and if you make less than 60% of what they make, then that means you're in poverty. What happens if that person is making $1 million a year? Say you live in an incredibly affluent place and the median person is making $1 million a year. That would mean that if you're making less than $600,000 a year, you're poverty-stricken. Well, that's crazy. It's stupid. And I was reading this article by this guy who was claiming, no, in fact the title of the article is, "The Poverty Line is Valid. 265,000 children really are in poverty." And he creates this fictitious idea and he says, look, imagine if we had these people, what did he say? He said, suppose it was a country made up of 5 people. And he says that 2 people earn 20,000 each, 1 50,000, 1 70,000 and 1 500,000. Okay? And he says that what that's basically saying is that those 2 $20,000 people, they are actually in poverty. Because the middle person is that 50,000. Okay? And so because they're earning less than 60% of that, and so he says, hey, this will be a great thing. All we need to do is if we could just give those people and increase the amount, because the 60% of 50 must be 30,000. So if, let's say we increase what these people earn up to 35,000, then no one's living in poverty. But I mean, the silly thing is, in fact, someone actually wrote a comment below and said, but how daft? Let's say you then take that person on 50,000, give them a rise and they go up to 60,000. Suddenly these people who at 35,000 they weren't in poverty, now because this other guy's got 10,000 more, suddenly they are in poverty. But they've got the same amount of money, they've still got the same expenses they had before, and it's shuffling stuff around. You see, poverty is something that, what's the word for it? I mean, the Bible, we'll get into a bit more, but we're going to talk a bit more about poverty later on. The Bible says, give me neither poverty nor riches. The Bible says it's a bad thing to be rich, and it's a bad thing to be poor. There's 2 extremes. It's both of those. I mean, the Bible contains, because you see, there's a lot of people, a lot of preachers out there that preach about money, and it's all about money. You've got to give money. And I've got my private jet, and I fly around the world. You know, people like Betty Hinn and all those sort of crazy guys. You know, it's across the bottom of the screen. Give, donate, give money. But the Bible warns about that. Paul writes to Timothy. He says, beware. He says to flee. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. So money is something that's dangerous. But it is also essential. You need money to survive. You've got to have money. Because all money is, it's just something you can exchange. I mean, normally if you work, you exchange your time for money. And then with that money you can then buy food and clothes and shelter and whatever else. That's all it is. But the Bible does warn about loving money. It warns. It's a dangerous thing. Anyway, but the thing about this, to suggest that New Zealand has a poverty problem is complete nonsense. Because you can take the poorest people in this country, the poorest people, and do you know what? You can find the amount that they get is astronomically more than the average person in some other countries who are genuinely struggling for food. Now, am I saying that there's no starving child in this country? That's not what I'm saying. But if there's a starving child in this country, it's because what they've got is they've got wicked parents. They've got wicked, thieving parents who aren't providing for their kids. Parents who've got cell phones, parents who, and people say, oh, this is just some stereotype. It's not. If you go around and knock doors, you knock on people's doors and preach the gospel. Do you know what? You meet people and you see what people are doing during the day. And you find people at home that are drunk during the day. You find people that are smoking dope during the day, that don't have a job, and they're being paid money. Money is coming out of everyone's pockets to go to them. Well, the Bible says if a man will not work, neither shall he eat. Okay? So, anyway, I didn't quite finish the article. So this is what Jacinda was saying. We've got this homeless and poverty. She says, look, we've moved from strong communities that looked after one another to an individual approach to solving our problems. She said, many present would recognise the impact of communities made up of individuals with little support, little connection, and worst of all, the absence of hope. Ardern said, the interest in justice issues was sparked by hearing Principal Youth Court Judge Andrew Burcroft, now Children's Commissioner, speak of common links between youth offenders. He's saying, look, if you look at youth offenders, these people that are in prison, there's common things. They've got common things. There are things that they have in common. They shared disengagement with education. Okay, they're not getting educated, these people. Disengagement with work. Shared family or gang violence, along with alcohol and drug use linked to learning disabilities. Because guess what? If you take drugs And if you drink alcohol, guess what? It's going to impair your ability to learn. Okay? Those backgrounds led into the prison statistics. 70% had literacy difficulties. 62% had mental health issues in the past year. 47% had addiction problems. Of those in prison, 40% of men and 52% of women had a lifetime diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder from abuse and violence, with 53% of women inside and 15% of men having experienced sexual assault. Okay? So all these bad things have happened to people, and that's why they're in prison. True. I agree. That's definitely a massive factor in why they're inside. I mean, I used to go down to prison when they still let me in. I used to go down there regularly. And the thing about it is that most people that I talk to in there, the majority of people in there, were inside prison for something they had done when they were under the influence of some substance, usually alcohol. Okay? That's just a fact. Now, this is back to Jacinda Ardern again. She says, so if we want to talk about an effective justice system, we shouldn't start with a discussion about prisons, but a discussion about New Zealand. She's like, you get back to what are the causes? I agree. The launch of the summit comes on a day the government announced new funding for police, which will see 1,800 additional officers on the streets. Critics have said the new police will see more arrests and higher prison numbers. Ardern emphasised prevention as a focus for police when speaking at the launch. So prevention, it's a great idea, but I'm not sure police are really the best equipped to be preventing the problems that we're talking about. New Zealand's incarceration rate, as we noted, is second to the United States among comparable Western countries. So it's a real serious problem. Now, you might wonder what relevance this criminal justice summit has to Father's Day. You think, what does this have to do with Father's Day? Turn back to Ephesians chapter 6, where we started. Ephesians chapter number 6. Ephesians chapter number 6. And there's a big introduction, but the sermon itself is really short. So Ephesians chapter number 6. And look at verse number 1. I can't go and be in Ephesians chapter 6 without reading verse number 1. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. It says, look, children should be obeying their parents. You know, some of those people inside, their children weren't obeying their parents. Okay? But the Bible says, look, children should obey your parents. And just worth noticing in passing, notice it's children. You see, when children grow up and become adults, do they have to obey their parents anymore? No. Because they're not children anymore. It says, children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Okay? You only have to, you've only got your children for a few short years, and then after that, they're actually on their own. Now, I must just note in passing, I believe it's best for children to stay with their parents until they get married. That's what they should do. They should stay with their parents until they get married. Some of the biggest mistakes people make in their lives, and I'll include myself in this, is when they leave home and the restrictions on them, they've got no restrictions, they've got no responsibilities. That's when people get into trouble. In their late teens, early 20s, when people in New Zealand, people go flatter. That's when I got into lots of trouble, and that's when most people do get into lots of trouble. Okay? Now, I'm not saying this is some hard and fast rule. You know, there's different situations. You know, I mean, there are people that have got really ungodly parents, and the best thing could be for them to get out of home. Okay? That's why it says, notice it says, children, obey your parents in the Lord. Okay? Parents' commands don't supersede God's commands. And so, but although it's not a hard and fast rule, it is a biblical principle. I mean, you're in Ephesians chapter 6. Look just higher on the page in chapter 5. Chapter 5, verse 31. Just so you know, I'm not making it up. Ephesians 5:31 says, for this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. So when they get married, what do? He leaves his father and mother. Well, how can he leave his father and mother unless he was with his father and mother before? Yeah, with his father and mother before. Because that's the way we do it. Because when people go off by themselves, they get into all sorts of trouble. Now, when you're at home, you're under the responsibility, authority of your parents. Okay? And then when you get married, if you're a man, if you're a lady, then you're under the authority of your husband. Yes, the Bible does say, and it's there in Ephesians chapter 5, wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands, as unto the Lord. Okay? You're under the authority of your husband, but if you're the husband, guess what? You've now got the responsibility. You've got a wife to look after, to feed, to clothe, to shelter, to provide for. And then children will come along, you've got to provide for them. You've got responsibility. Okay? And so, that's a biblical concept. That is a biblical concept. Okay? Look down at verse number 2. Verse number 2, it says, honour thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise. Now, this verse number 2, this actually comes from the Ten Commandments. From the Ten Commandments. Have a look, keep your finger in Ephesians 6, but look back to Exodus chapter number 20. Exodus chapter number 20, we'll find the Ten Commandments. Exodus chapter number 20. Exodus chapter number 20. Actually, Exodus chapter 20, verse number 1, it says, "And God spake all these words, saying," this is what God says, "I am the Lord thy God, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me." So that's the first one. God should be first. No other gods before him. "Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image, or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them, for I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children, unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me, and keep my commandments." So what have we got here? We've got the second commandment saying, don't make graven images, and don't bow down and worship them. Okay? So that's the second commandment. The third one, verse number 7, "Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain." So saying, look, don't use God's name as a curse word. You know? Don't take the name of the God of the universe and bring it down to, a swear word. You know, what you might stand, something you'd stand in on the footpath. Don't do that. Verse number 8, "Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labour and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy strangers within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and the sea and all that in them is." Yes, God made the earth in 7 days. "And rested the seventh day, wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it." Now the Sabbath, that is actually a commandment that no longer applies in the New Testament. I'm not going to preach a sermon on that right now, but it doesn't apply. The Bible says, "Let no man judge you," with regards to meat and drink and with respect of a holy day or the new moon or of the Sabbath days, which are a shadow of the things to come. And the Bible talks in Hebrews about there being made a change to the law. And there is nowhere in the New Testament you'll find the Sabbath being enforced. Every other commandment you'll find it enforced. Not idolatry, not taking God's name, not blaspheming, all these different things. You won't find any mention of keeping the Sabbath at all. Okay? Verse number 12, here we are, this is the one we're looking for. Verse number 12, it says, "Honour thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee." So notice what it's saying here, and I suppose we could because we're almost there. Look, verse 13, "Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbour." Don't lie about your neighbour. "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbour's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbour's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbour's." Now, if you were counting up there are actually 10 commandments. You say, "You sure?" You could probably split them different ways. Well, maybe you could, but it actually says, for example, in Exodus chapter number 34, when the law gets given again, because of course Moses, he has a bit of an issue, he chucks stuff on the ground and the tablets get broken, and so God, writes them again. He rewrites the same words. It says in Exodus chapter 34, verse number 28, Exodus 34, 28 says, "And he was there with the Lord 40 days and 40 nights. He neither did eat bread nor drink water, and he wrote upon the tables the words of the covenant," the 10 commandments. So it's definitely 10 commandments. Now, just in passing, the Catholic Church actually changes the 10 commandments. Did you know that? That they change the 10 commandments. And the reason for that is because they break the second commandment. Okay, the second commandment forbids graven images. Don't make graven images and bow down and worship them. What do? They make heaps of them. They've got statues of Jesus and statues of Mary, and they pray before them all the time. So what do? But if they took that out, wouldn't they only have 9? No, so what they do is they take the last one. They take the 10th one, which says, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbour's house, thou shalt not covet thy neighbour's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant." They say, don't covet your neighbour's wife, that's one commandment, and then don't covet anything else that's your neighbour's. They just make "thou shalt not covet" into 2. So they've still come up with the right number, still come up with 10. But it's just worth seeing in passing. But notice there that it says in verse number 12, "Honour thy father and mother, that thy days may be long upon the land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee." So he says, look, honour your father and mother, so you'll actually live a long time. Okay? Look back at Ephesians chapter number 6, and we see here, look, it says, "Honour thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth." You see, you've got a promise associated with honouring your parents, and that is what? To actually live a long time. In contrast to that, it says, and don't need to turn there, but Psalm 55:23 says, "But thou, O God, shalt bring them down into the pit of destruction. Bloody and deceitful men," that's like wicked people, "shall not live out half their days. But I will trust in thee." You see, honouring your parents, you can live longer, but guess what? If you're a wicked person, then your life can be cut short. Now, does it happen in every instance? Do we understand, is it going to happen in every case? No. Have there been wicked people who have lived a long time? Yeah. Yes. I mean, didn't Joseph Stalin, didn't he die an old man on his deathbed? He was a wicked, bloody man. Okay? What about Stephen, that we read about in the Bible? What happened to him? Did he live to, I'm sure he probably honoured his parents. A good, godly Christian man, what happened? He was stoned to death. Okay? So it's not that it holds in every situation, but the Bible's full of principles which, in general, that is the case. Your life will be cut short if you're wicked. And if you live and do what's right and honour your parents, and that means in other words you're learning from them and obeying, guess what? You're going to live longer. Okay, but let's go on to verse number 4, because this is where we want to focus. It says in verse number 4, it says, "And ye fathers, provoke not your children to wrath, but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord." So it says fathers shouldn't be provoking their children. Now, that's actually good advice for everyone. Fathers shouldn't provoke their children. Guess what? Siblings shouldn't provoke their siblings. Okay? And one of the reasons for that is we don't want to make people angry. Don't make people angry. Why? Because it says in James 1:20, "The wrath of man," that's the anger of man, "worketh not the righteousness of God." When we get angry, is that going to bring about God's righteousness? No, it's not. Now, it's not a sin to be angry. Just to understand, it's not a sin to be angry. If you look at Ephesians chapter 4, verse number 26, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26, it says, "Be ye angry, and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon your wrath." So he says you can be angry without sinning. So if being angry was a sin, that would be impossible. Okay? I mean, Jesus himself, you can read about it in Mark chapter 3, verse 5. Jesus, he looked about on people in anger. Jesus got angry. I mean, didn't he go into the temple and overturn the tables? Remember the money changers? Remember the warning about money before? Remember the money changers? What did Jesus do? He tipped over the tables. I mean, imagine if Jesus came in here right now. Look at that table back there. Imagine if he got that table and picked it up and threw it on the ground and it scattered everywhere. Can you imagine Jesus with a whip, chasing people? Because that's what you do. Chase people out of the temple with a whip. Okay, Jesus got angry. Was he sinning? No. The Bible says he knew no sin. Okay? But the thing about it is, it's like most of the time when we get angry, it's actually not righteous anger like Jesus had. Most of the time it's not. It's just us having a bad attitude, and that is sinful. Now, in Ephesians 6:4, fathers are exhorted not to provoke their children to anger, not to cause them to sin. Does that mean that every time a child gets angry, you've done something wrong? No. No, not at all. I mean, children are born sinners. It says in Proverbs 22:15, "Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction shall drive it far from him." That's what the Bible says. Children are born foolish. Now, children can get mad when they're getting corrected, but there's no need to make them unnecessarily mad by what we do as parents. And there's lots of ways you can do that. Be thoughtful, be helpful. I mean, it's something I learned years ago. This was a parent course I did years ago. And it was, say you're going to go somewhere, and your children are busy doing something, they're having a great time, they're busy, whatever it may be, and you're going to go somewhere. Rather than just, "Hey, time to go." I mean, with a bit of forethought, you can avoid, because, I mean, they're engaged in something, they're involved with something. Wouldn't it be a better idea to say, "Hey, in 5 minutes, we're going to be going. So 5 minutes, and then pack up your stuff and you're going to be ready to go." Maybe 10 minutes, or depending on what it is and what needs to be done before you go out. But give them advance warning. Just tell them, this is what's going to happen in 10 minutes. And then when it comes around, and it just diffuses a lot of, and that's a pretty simple thing to do. Do I always remember to do it? No, I don't. Okay. But, great advice. Now, the title of the sermon this morning, so you're going to start the sermon? Yes. The title of the sermon this morning is "The Failure of Fathers." The failure of fathers. Okay? And the part of Ephesians chapter 6 I want to focus on is that second part in verse number 4. Look back in verse number 4. It says, "And you fathers provoke not your children to wrath," look at this, "but bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord." Now let me just give a proviso here. I'm not attacking you if you think, "Hey, look, I haven't been the father that I should be." Okay? Because no one has been the father that they should be. That's just the fact. None of us have been the father that we should be. Okay? And you might think, well, okay, let's say you've been a father and you think, "Oh, look, I've lived my life and I've done all the wrong things and my children have gone off the rails. It's all been a big disaster." Well, guess what? You can still change now. You can still change now. And from this point on, you can be a good father. Okay? You can maybe repair some of the damage that's been done. But also, you can help other people. So it might not even end up being your own physical child or children. But you can help other people's children. You can still be like a father figure to them. Do some of the things that fathers do. Teach them the right thing. Lead by example. We'll get onto that in a wee minute. Okay? So just to understand, I'm not trying to get at people. I'm not trying to claim that I'm perfect as a father. I've made lots of mistakes. Okay? But God says that fathers are to bring up their children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And a vital part in the growth and development of a happy, healthy, well-adjusted children should be provided by their father. But in New Zealand today, and in many countries around the world, that's not happening the way that it should be. Remember we saw that the Criminal Justice Summit we talked about earlier? Well, prisons are a mess that people are scratching their heads about. They're trying to figure out how to fix them. What did the Prime Minister say? She said they're a moral and fiscal failure. In other words, they're expensive and they don't work. They're not fixing the problems. Now, there was a glaring absence from the discussion about why people are ending up in prison. Remember the causes? Alcohol and all those sorts of different things they talked about? But what leads to those problems in the first place? What leads to them in the first place? Let me read you some interesting parts from an article that's titled Prison Summit. So this is what the Prime Minister was at. Will ignore a prime cause of crime. It says, the saying, we reap what we sow, yes, that does come from the Bible, highlights the farming experience that if you don't work in relationship with nature, you'll get a dud crop. Depending on what you sow, that's going to affect what you reap. In fact, the Bible actually says, be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. It comes to mind when I think about the latest twist in the crime and punishment debate, the number of people in prisons. The focus on the product of crime, prisoners and victims gives little attention to the root causes of the problem. That is to say, we are worried by what we are reaping, in other words, criminals, people ending up in prison, and not enough by what we're sowing. What's causing these things? Minister of Justice Andrew Little wants to find ways to reduce the prison population. Fair enough. Essentially, this will be achieved by softening bail legislation and making parole easier to get. In other words, making it less likely that someone's going to go to prison or stay in prison for very long. That'll reduce the number in there. So all it just means is you just move criminals, many of them violent offenders, out into the streets. Okay? The result will be... I made that up, but that's what he said. The result will be more offenders on the streets. The streets will become more dangerous and public safety will suffer as a consequence. The inconvenient truth about high prison rates is that crime has fallen. New Zealand homicide rates peaked at 176 a year, but have now declined to about 80 per year. So the homicides have actually gone down. As New Zealand locked up its criminals for longer, the terrible crimes that resulted in the formation of the Sensible Sentencing Trust, such as those against Teresa Cormack, Kylie Smith and Carla Cardno, have declined. There's been less of those. But locking people up is a response to criminals. It's not the complete answer to preventing the creation of criminals. The author of this thing here said he was born in 1951, a time when New Zealand's crime and prison numbers were incredibly low. In fact, the country was averaging 1 or 2 homicides per year. 1 or 2 per year in the early 60s. So what went wrong? How did one of the safest countries in the Western world, which is what New Zealand was, end up spiralling into a totally unacceptable level of crime? Why is it that even locking people up doesn't stop new criminals emerging? What is different about our country now that is creating this new breed of criminal? The one common denominator that Little and his colleagues won't dare talk about is the traditional family. That's the thing they won't talk about. I'm talking about a stable family unit. That is 2 parents and the children they bring into a loving, cherished relationship, where the child grows up being taught right from wrong to become a law-abiding, contributing citizen. The figures speak for themselves. In 1961, 95% of children were born into a traditional family with married parents. 95%. By 2015, only 53% of children were brought into the world by parents who were married. It's gone from 95 to 53. A child that grows up without a father is 5 times more likely to commit crime. The evidence shows that more children are abused in de facto type households, and a child who's been abused is 20 times more likely to end up in prison when an adult. Okay? And it's just common sense. It's common sense that a child is more likely to be abused. I mean, who do you think is more likely to abuse a child? Do you think it's like their own father is more likely to abuse? Now, does that happen? Yes, it does. Are they more likely to be abused by that? Or what about when the father's gone and then it's just a string of different guys coming through the house? Yeah. Which one's more likely to result in abuse? I mean, people know. For Maori, the figures are worse. In 1968, 72% of Maori children were born to married parents. They had both a mother and a father as role models, just as the vast majority of Pacific Island do today. By 2015, only 21% of Maori children were born into a traditional mother and father married to each other family. The stark, staring fact is that the mantra, all forms of family or whānau are equal, is clearly nonsense. Yeah. It's absolute nonsense. But the thing is, it's the same people that are promoting, we don't, mum and dad, no, we can have all sorts of different families, and it's all great. Now, I understand also, you might be from a family that's broken, that's dysfunctional, that's not the traditional mum, dad, and the kids. I'm not trying to get at you if that's the case. But we need to be honest and say some things are better than others. And the fact is, when it comes to raising children who aren't criminals, mum, dad, and the kids does a better job than any other variation. You see, look, the evidence is clear that a child needs a father who wants and loves them. This is the best way to raise a child to become a law-abiding, contributing member of society. Little's Justice Summit won't dare say anything like that. No, they won't be talking about that at all. They won't mention it. Even though the prisons are full of these fatherless children. No, you can't say that. They fear they might offend the left-wing liberals who have been at the forefront of breaking down the family unit. They want to destroy the family unit. They want to destroy the family unit. These liberals would rather focus on the problem of prison numbers than face the reality of what their social ideology has created. And that's the fact, is when you look at what's been promoted by these people, it's brought bad things have come about because of it. Bad things have come about because of it. People have all sorts of ideas. Well, I think this is good. I think this is good. But when we look and see what actually happens, what happens to a regular family? No, I'm not saying, are there regular families with a mum and a dad and the kids, and it's a disaster and the kids end up in prison? Yes. Are there solo mothers raising children by themselves that bring up happy, healthy, well-adjusted children? Yes, it does happen. But the fact is, on average, it's not. On average, that is not the case. I mean, the people who are in poverty. Who are the people in poverty? Are they people with mum and dad, married and kids? Are they the people that are in poverty? By and large, it's not. In fact, I heard this thing that there's some report talking about over in the States. So they said that there's 3 things you need to do if you don't want to end up in poverty in the United States. And the United States is a place where you've got really wealthy and really poor. It's a wide range. But they said, if you graduate from high school, if you don't have children out of wedlock, and if you get a job, then the chances of you ending up in poverty are about 3%. In other words, very, very minimal chance. Okay? Just doing those basic things. But we encourage, who needs a job, really? We encourage people. It's like, breaking up families. Having children out of wedlock, marriage, what's that? You don't need to get married to have children, do you? Okay, and so just these basic things that the Bible talks about. And they say, well, what does this have to do with the failure of fathers? Well, you see, there are many ways that a father can fail. And as I said, no father is perfect. I'm not claiming to be perfect. I've made lots of mistakes and I still will make lots of mistakes. But the most significant way a father can fail is a father can be absent. He cannot be there. When a father is not there. But absent fathers are actively promoted in New Zealand. That's the philosophy. All types of families are equal, they say. 2 men and children. 2 women and children. 1 woman and children. That's a hugely common one. Guess what? Compared to a mum and a dad and kids, those things aren't equal. Those things are not equal at all. If you actually care about what happens to children. Now, if you don't care what happens to children, well, whatever. The figures are so clear that children without fathers are unprotected from a lot of harmful influences. They have increased risk of abuse from the new partners. We mentioned that before. They've got more trouble with the police. They've got more trouble with antisocial behaviour. They have increased suicide. They have poor mental health. They have a lack of boundaries. They're more likely to be violent. They're more likely to become pregnant. They're more likely to use drugs. They're more likely to struggle with anger. They have increased truancy. They have reduced educational achievements. I mean, those who might go in, you're not at school, maybe you won't achieve as much. Actually, no. Better take that back. You're more likely to end up in prison. You're more likely to run away from home. You're more likely to experience poverty. And that's just a fact. Breaking down families results in poverty, and that's a bad thing. The Bible makes it clear, poverty is not a good thing. Poverty is not something we should desire. It says in Proverbs 30 verse 8, it says, remove from me, far from me vanity and lies, give me neither poverty nor riches, feed me with food convenient for me. Now some people think poverty, it's just down to luck. I'm just unlucky, that's why I'm poor. And the people that are rich, they just got lucky. Now, are there things that happen to people? You can have some medical crisis, you can have some health thing, you can have, you can lose your job through no fault of your own. Things like that can happen, definitely. And likewise, people can get lucky things. But by and large, that's not the majority. It's not. It's not, okay? Have a look, well, depends. If you believe the Bible, have a look what it says in Proverbs chapter number 6. Proverbs chapter number 6. You see, because the Bible, it talks a lot about poverty. Proverbs chapter number 6. Proverbs chapter number 6 and verse number 6. Proverbs chapter 6, verse number 6. It says, go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise. And a sluggard, you think about a slug? What's a slug? Real fast mover, isn't it? Working hard. No. Consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer or ruler. So there's no one bossing this person around, the ant around. Provideth her meat or her food in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest. How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of thy sleep? Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that travelleth, and thy want as an armed man. Just saying, look, if you're going to be a sluggard, if you're going to be lazy, if you're going to be sleeping all the time, what's going to happen? Poverty's coming. Poverty's coming for you. Okay? Look at Proverbs chapter number 28. Proverbs chapter number 28 and verse number 19. Proverbs chapter 28 and verse number 19. Proverbs chapter 28 and verse number 19 says, he that tilleth his land shall have plenty of bread, but he that followeth after vain persons shall have poverty enough. So if you work, you're going to have plenty of food. If you work, you'll have plenty of food. But if you follow after vain persons, you'll have poverty enough. Listen to people that lead you down the wrong path and tell you a pack of lies, like Jacinda Ardern, you'll have poverty enough. Look at verse number 22. He that hasteth to be rich hath an evil eye, and considereth not that poverty shall come upon him. Being hasty to be rich. Get rich quick. You ever heard of that? Get rich quick scheme? Guess what? If you're hasty to be rich, you've got an evil eye. That means you're wanting the wrong thing. And you realise poverty's going to come your way. I mean, how do people often haste to be rich? They gamble. Yeah, exactly. They gamble. They get the lotto tickets. That's what they do. Okay? Now, am I saying that, okay, and people, I mean, why is it that people who win the lottery so often end up worse off than they were before? Why is it? You give them $1 million and it actually ends up ruining their life. Why does that happen? Now, does it happen in all cases? No. Because the thing is, people who are good with money, if you give them $1 million, they're still going to be good with money. But people who are bad with money, people who are poverty-stricken, you give them a whole pile of money, they're still bad with money, and they're going to blow it all, and end up just in a worse state. And that's why that's happened over and over and over again. Okay? Now, I understand. I'm not saying, therefore, everyone who buys a lotto ticket is, that's what is bad with money. No. I mean, there are people who buy lotto tickets every week, and yet guess what? By and large, they're good with money. It's just some frivolous spending that they do. But the Bible's clear. Look, being hasty to be rich, it's a bad thing. Okay, look at Proverbs chapter number 24. Proverbs chapter number 24 and verse number 30. Proverbs chapter 24 and verse number 30. It says, I went by the field of the slothful. The slothful's a bit like the sluggard. And by the vineyard of the man without understanding. So he's lazy, and also he's dumb. He lacks understanding. And lo, it was all grown over with thorns, and nettles had covered the face thereof, and the stone wall thereof was broken down. Then I saw and considered it well. I looked upon it and received instruction. It's a good idea to think about things. Look at things and think about them. Think, why is this actually happening? Why is this actually happening? And received instruction. Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that travelleth, and thy want as an armed man. Once again, laziness is going to result in poverty. Look at Proverbs chapter number 13. Proverbs chapter number 13 and verse number 18. Proverbs chapter 13 and verse number 18. Proverbs chapter 13 and verse number 18. It says, poverty and shame shall be to him that refuseth instruction, but he that regardeth reproof shall be honoured. So notice how poverty is associated. If you refuse to be instructed, you don't listen. Okay? If you refuse to listen, poverty and shame's coming your way. But if you regard reproof, if you get told off and you pay attention, you're going to be honoured. Now we saw in Ephesians chapter 6 verse 4 that fathers should bring up their children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. That means fathers should correct their children. They should correct. But guess what? If they're not there, then the children aren't going to be corrected. And the fact is that women and men are different. And they don't raise their children in the same way. Women are more compassionate, by and large. They're more merciful than dads are. Dads are sort of more black and white, and they tend to be the more disciplinarian. Now, am I saying that's the case in every case? No. Okay? But on average, that's the case. And if that's the average case, and if you remove the father, guess what you've lost? You've lost that correction. You've lost that discipline. And so you get up with wayward children in prison. I mean, are we really shocked by this? Fathers should correct their children. Look at Proverbs chapter 3 and verse number 12. Proverbs chapter 3 and verse number 12. Happy is the, verse number 12, for whom the Lord loveth he correcteth, even as a father the son in whom he delighteth. So look, God corrects people who he loves. Just the same way that a father, the son in whom he delights. So a father, because he loves his children, he will correct them. But guess what? If he's gone, he's not going to be correcting them. Maybe if he's gone, it's because he doesn't love them. Maybe. Okay? Look at Hebrews chapter number 12. Hebrews chapter number, keep your finger in Proverbs because it comes straight back. But Hebrews chapter number 12, God corrects his children. It says in Hebrews chapter 12, verse number 6. Hebrews chapter 12, verse number 6. It says, for whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. A scourging, that's like a whipping. That's a spanking. Okay? If ye endure chastening, God dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. Now it's interesting, look, these bastards, these people who aren't sons, what are they without? Chastisement. Well, guess what? Many children who are born out of wedlock, what used to be called bastard children, guess what? They're without chastisement because the father's not there. And of course you have these female prime ministers who introduced laws saying you can't spank your children. It's against the law to spank your children. Okay? The female prime minister who didn't actually have a child, anyway. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh which corrected us, and we gave them reverence. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live? For they verily for a few days chastened us after our own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness. Now no chastening for the present seemeth to be joyous. It's not a pleasant thing to be chastened, but grievous. Nevertheless afterward it yieldeth the peaceable fruit of righteousness unto them which are exercised thereby. So guess what? It yields righteousness. It makes people do what's right. But if you don't have it, what's going to happen? Okay, look back at Proverbs chapter number 23. We sang this before, and we saw a little bit of it. Look at Proverbs chapter number 23. Proverbs chapter number 23 and verse number 13. Proverbs chapter 23 and verse number 13. It says, withhold not correction from the child. For if thou beatest him with the rod, he shall not die. Thou shalt beat him with the rod and shalt deliver his soul from hell. Maybe you'll beat him with the rod and you'll deliver his body from going to prison. Yeah. If you're still there, but if you're not, how are you going to do it? You say, oh, but I can never beat my child. I can never spank my child. I love them too much. Not according to the Bible, you don't. Look back at Proverbs chapter number 13 again. Proverbs chapter number 13. Proverbs chapter number 13, verse 24 says, he that spareth his rod, that means he that doesn't use his rod. He that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes. Why? Because you do what's right for them. Because you love them. Okay? So fathers should correct their children. Fathers should protect their children. Look at Proverbs chapter 18, verse number 10. Proverbs chapter 18 and verse number 10. The name of the Lord is a strong tower. The righteous runneth into it and is safe. You see, God is a father, isn't he? And he's going to protect us. But it specifically says that the righteous runneth into it and is safe. Look at Proverbs chapter number 21. Proverbs chapter 21 and verse number 31. Proverbs 21:31. Says, the horse is prepared against the day of battle, but safety is of the Lord. God is the one who will protect us. But of course, what is God? He's our Father. God, thou art our Father. Psalm number 4. Psalm number 4, verse number 8. Psalm number 4 and verse number 8. Psalm 4:8 says, I will both lay me down in peace and sleep, for thou, Lord, only makest me dwell in safety. God protects his people. And there's verse after verse talking about that. But of course, fathers, they're supposed to do the same thing for their children that God does for his children. They're supposed to protect them. They're supposed to keep them safe. Not only that, fathers, they should also give their children, they should give them an example to follow. Give them an example to follow. 1 Peter 2:21, talking about Jesus, it says in 1 Peter 2:21, it says, for even hereunto were you called, because Christ also suffered for us, leaving us an example that ye should follow his steps. Notice that. Leaving an example that you should follow his steps. Jesus gave us an example for us to follow. But that's exactly what fathers should do for their children. Back in Proverbs chapter number 23 again, Proverbs chapter number 23, verse number 26. It says, Proverbs 23:26. If you're a father, underline this verse. Underline this verse. Proverbs 23:26. My son, give me thine heart, and let thine eyes observe my ways. Your children are going to watch you. They're going to watch what you do. They're going to listen to what you say. They're going to observe you. If you want your children's heart, look, don't be a hypocrite. Let thine eyes observe my ways. Could you say that to your children? Do you think, I want you to follow me. I want you to be like me. Now, I'm not saying that any of us are perfect and we're going to retain perfection. But if you think, hey, look, I wouldn't want my children to be anything like me, then there's a problem. Okay? Fathers should give their children instruction. They should give their children instruction. Look at Psalm 32 and verse number 8. Psalm 32 and verse number 8. Psalm 32 and verse number 8. Psalm 32 says, I will instruct thee and teach thee in the way which thou shalt go. I will guide thee with mine eye. Look back at Deuteronomy chapter number 6. Deuteronomy chapter number 6 and verse number 6. Deuteronomy chapter number 6 and verse number 6. Deuteronomy 6:6 says, and these words which I command thee this day shall be in thine heart, and thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and shalt talk of them when thou sittest on thine house, when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, and when thou risest up. But this it says in Isaiah 38:19, the fathers to the children shall make known thy truth. The fathers to the children shall make known thy truth. Look at Deuteronomy chapter number 11. Deuteronomy chapter number 11 and verse number 18. Deuteronomy 11:18 says, therefore shall ye lay up these my words in your heart and in your soul, and bind them for a sign upon your hand, that they may be as frontlets between your eyes, and ye shall teach them your children, speaking of them when thou sittest on thine house, when thou walkest by the way, when thou liest down, when thou risest up. Notice that it's something you should be doing all the time. Be with your children. That's one of the reasons homeschooling is a great thing. You can be with your children and you can teach your children. Because guess what? If you send them off to school, someone else is going to be teaching them. Is it you? No? What does that person believe? They're going to be teaching them stuff. You know, and if you go to today's, they'll be teaching them the values of, of Jacinda Ardern. You know, the young communist. That's what they'll be teaching them. And then children come out and they believe the things because they get taught a skewed view of history. Do you know that? Like people at school, they know about Hitler. They know about Hitler killing the Jews. But how many children come out of school knowing about what Joseph Stalin did? Or Lenin? Do you think they really know about that? I don't think they do. Because when they come to university, They join groups. They join communist groups. You see them around Varsity, and they have the hammer and the sickle of the Soviet Union. What are the millions of people that were murdered? Millions upon millions of people. Or maybe they think communist China's great. Mao Zedong, he's great, wasn't he? How many millions did he kill? These communist regimes. And yet, I work at the university, and people think it's great. Why? Because they're ignorant. Because they haven't been taught anything. They've gone to a school and they've been brainwashed. They've been taught a little wee fraction of history, and a whole pile of it's been ignored. This is not the subject of the sermon, but look, communism has failed everywhere it's been tried. Everywhere it's been tried, it's ended up in a bloodbath. And yet today, hey, it's great. It's great. This is what we want. And it's foolishness. Now, does capitalism have problems? Yes, it does. Because the love of money is the root of all evil. Now, I'm not saying capitalism is just this ideal utopia. But it's a lot better than communism. It's a whole lot better than communism. Okay? Not quite sure. Fathers instructing their children. The last one is, look, fathers provide for their children. Fathers should provide for their children. 1 Timothy chapter number 5, verse number 8. 1 Timothy chapter number 5. 1 Timothy chapter number 5 and verse number 8. 1 Timothy 5:8 says, "But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house." It's saying if someone doesn't provide for his own family, his own house, it says he hath denied the faith and is worse than an infidel. So if a man won't provide for his own family, that's a bad thing. That's a very bad... So if he goes off and just leaves them, okay? Now, the fact is money's still going to be extracted from him anyway in today's society. In fact, the Bible knows about all these different things. The Bible talks so much about it that it's almost like God knew things before they happened. Is that what it seems like? Proverbs chapter 5. Proverbs chapter 5 gives a warning about like the strange woman. And it says, remove thy way far from her, come not nigh the door of her house. This is a strange woman. Lest thou give thine honour unto others, and thy years unto the cruel, lest strangers be filled with thy wealth, and thy labours be in the house of a stranger. That's what's called child support. That's what that is. If you go sleeping around, if you go whoring around, what's going to happen is that your money is going to go and pay into someone else's house. That's what it's going to be. And that's what God said. Solomon said that, but God was the one who gave him his wisdom. Okay? Better wrap up. Goodness me, look at the time. In New Zealand, there are more and more fathers that are failing. It's causing a huge number of problems in society. A huge number of problems. What's the solution? It's to go back to the Bible. It's just to go back to what the Bible teaches. It's all laid out here in black and white. We should be reading the book of Proverbs every single day. Every single day. There's 31 chapters in Proverbs. Read a chapter a day. And do that for the rest of your life. And you'll grow in wisdom. Look at Proverbs chapter number 4. Proverbs chapter number 4. And as we read through this, contrast this with what you see on the TV. In fact, I hope you don't see it on the TV. I don't have a TV. I hope you don't either. But most people do have a TV. And on the TV, what image gets portrayed of fathers on the TV? Are fathers, they're leading their families, they're wise, they're godly men, or are they bumbling fools on the TV? They're bumbling fools, aren't they? Homer Simpson, he's the archetypical dad, isn't he? That's what the TV is portraying fathers as. But it says in Proverbs chapter number 4, it says, look, hear ye children the instruction of father, and attend to no understanding. For I give you good doctrine, forsake ye not my law. What's this? This is a father teaching his children. For I was my father's son, tender and only beloved in the sight of my mother. He taught me also and said unto me, let thine heart retain my words, keep my commandments and live. This guy was taught by his father, and he's teaching his son. He says, get wisdom, get understanding, forget it not, neither decline from the words of my mouth. Forsake her not, and she shall preserve thee. Love her, and she shall keep thee. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. Exalt her, and she shall promote thee. She shall bring thee to honour when thou dost embrace her. But what happens if you don't embrace wisdom? What if you don't embrace instruction? What's going to happen? Are you going to be brought to honour, or are you going to be brought down to the Milton Hilton? That's what it is. People who refuse instruction. They don't listen, they don't learn, they don't... And often it's not their fault. It's because their father's done a runner. He's not there. Okay? But the instruction's there. I mean, the Bible talks about it. It says, wisdom crieth without. She uttered her voice. You know, she's saying to passers-by. But people refuse instruction. She should give to thine head an ornament of grace. A crown of glory shall she deliver thee. Hear, O my son, and receive thy sayings, and the years of thy life shall be many. Doesn't that sound pretty similar? Remember what happens if you honour your father and mother? I've taught thee in the way of wisdom. I've led thee in right paths. So notice, I've taught, but I've also led thee. You can follow me. When thou goest, thy steps shall not be straitened. When thou runnest, thou shalt not stumble. Take fast hold of instruction. Let her not go. Keep her, for she is thy life. Instruction is so important. Enter not into the path of the wicked, and go not in the way of evil men. Avoid it. Pass not by it. Turn from it, and pass away. Do you think it's trying to emphasise something? It says the same thing 4 times. Avoid it. Pass not by it. Turn from it, and pass away. Remember, be not among winebibbers, among riotous eaters of flesh. Avoid. For they sleep not, except they've done mischief. Their sleep is taken away unless they cause some to fall. For they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. But the path of the just, the person who's doing what's right, is as a shining light that shineth more and more unto the perfect day. The way of the wicked is as darkness. They know not at what they stumble. My son, attend to my words. Incline thine ear unto my sayings. Let them not depart from thine eyes. Keep them in the midst of thine heart. For they are life unto all, those that find them, and health to all their flesh. There are the blessings that God will give when we pay attention to what he says. But when we ignore it, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? You know? I mean, you can just follow the path, you know. 2 people, they get together. They ignore God's commandments. Don't commit fornication. They commit fornication. Maybe it's just a one-night stand. He's gone. She has a baby. She raises that baby. She gets paid by the government to do it. She raises that child. There's no father around. And the child goes up and he's looking for a father. He's looking for some boundaries in his life. He's looking for some male role models. Now, he's living in a poor area of town because single parents, they're in poverty. So who does he find in the poor area of town? Who's around? He goes outside and who does he find? The local gang. They'll give him some role models. They'll give him some boundaries. They'll give him someone to follow. Be part of us. This is what it means to be a man. And he follows down that path. And he gets into alcohol, he gets into drugs, and he ends up in prison. And the same thing happens over and over and over again. But here we've got the government trying to fix things, and we've got to get less people in prison. We've got to get less people, you know, with these problems. We've got to fix the problems. And yet at the same time, they promote it, don't they? No-fault divorce. I mean, has no-fault divorce always been around? I don't think it has. I don't think it has at all. You see, God's ways are the right ways. And having fathers who love their children solves so many problems. But when we ignore them to our peril. You know, isn't there that saying about those who don't know history are, you know, condemned to repeat it or something like that? Isn't that true? And that can happen on a national level, but even just within individual families. If you don't realise this is what happens, this causes this. Now, it's not in every situation, is it? Can you be the child of that solo mum who's brought up in South Auckland, and can you make right choices and get yourself out of that? Yes, you can. Because many people do. Okay? So it's not some death sentence. But the fact is, we can do things that are going to help. And we can do things that are going to do the opposite. They're going to harm. We'll finish up there. The title of the sermon was The Failure of Fathers. Fathers are failing in New Zealand. They are failing. And there's a lot of reasons for that. There's a huge push from the media, from the things you see on the TV, just promoting everything that's wrong. All the stuff that's coming out of Hollywood. The values are completely the opposite of what this is. Completely opposite of God's values. You know, back if you're back in the 60s in New Zealand, I mean, I knew a guy who came to New Zealand. He was from England. And he says back in the 60s, when he came to New Zealand, he says, this is what people would do. People would go shopping. And a lady would push a pram along the main street. She would park a pram outside a shop with a baby in it. She'd go into the shop, she'd buy something, she'd come out, put it in the pram, she'd go along a bit further, she'd park outside another shop, leave it there with the baby and the shopping in the pram, and she'd go into a shop and she'd get some. Would anyone do that today in New Zealand? Well, that wasn't that long ago. That wasn't that long ago.
They still do in Denmark.
But the place, well, certain places in Denmark I don't actually. But the thing about it is, the world we live in has changed. Back then, wasn't it like a common thing for people to go to church? Now, I'm not saying that they all believed, salvation by grace through faith and were actually saved, but they were people who lived according to the basic principles of the Bible. They got married and had children. The father went out and worked, and the mother stayed at home and looked after the kids. And it was a better society that we lived in. Now, it's harder to do that today, but it's not as hard as following the way that Jacinda Ardern wants us to go. It's not. Anyway, let's pray. Gracious Lord, we thank you for this day. Thank you for your word. And Lord, I just pray you'd be with every single father that's here today, everyone that's going to be a father. And Lord, I just pray that you'd raise up more godly fathers in this country. I pray that more children would learn the truth. That more children would not be led astray by wicked people that are profiting from all sorts of wrong that's going on. Lord, we thank you for the last the great week it's been with soul winning. We thank you for all the souls saved, and I just pray you continue to bless our labours, Lord. Please help us to bring people out of darkness into light, that people would be saved, and then they would begin to learn the truth. They would learn your word, and that lives would be transformed, that families would be transformed, that nations would be transformed. We thank you and praise you and love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.